At long last, audio issues are fixed.
All of our audio issues good to go.
We're ready to record the podcast.
Just go ahead and let us know when you're
Today on the Herald's Horn interview, I am joined by the one and only Ryan Street, one of my longest friends in the Magic the Gathering community now, the man who took a chance by bringing me onto the Playing with Power team, and obviously the progenitor, the head of the voice of Playing with Power MTG, one of the OG competitive EDH focused gameplay channels here on YouTube that has recently, at long last, made it to 100,000 subscribers, joining a very rare group of Magic-focused channels. I had Ryan on to talk about, number one, why he started Playing with Power. It's a very interesting mission behind the crew, why he started doing it in the first place, why he makes videos the way he does, all that kind of stuff. And of course, we have to talk about the very high highs and the very low lows that come along with grinding your way up to 100,000 subscribers over a period of 6 years. It's a great conversation. Let's go ahead and get into it. And welcome back to yet another Herald's Horn interview. On this episode, I've already introduced him, but it's Ryan from Playing with Power, perhaps the man that I have secretly podcasted with the most. It's not that secret, but it's been a minute now. Ryan, thank you so much for stepping into the horn.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, what do you mean secret? How many podcasts do we have that are not released? I don't know.
Maybe one, but we did make like 60-hour and plus podcast episodes together, which is wild for me to think about.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
When I looked into it, because I was just putting together a list of things I'd worked on. I was like, what do we do? Like 20 episodes of that? But no, we made like 60 plus. Wow. I was astounded. Wow. We were really on that grind for a second there.
That's awesome.
So Ryan, yes, for those of you who may not know, I used to be a member of the Playing with Power Magic the Gathering content team, which is headed up by the venerable Ryan Street. And that channel has recently hit 100,000 subscribers. Congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Yes. Super happy about it.
And as a longtime CEDH head who was watching Playing with Power long before I was able to join the team, I wanted to bring Ryan on to chat with him a little bit, kind of about that content journey. There is a long way to go in between 0 and 100,000 YouTube subscribers. And I know for Ryan, it has kind of had some highs and some lows, so we're going to talk about that. But Ryan, first, I wanted to hear, what was your motivation behind starting the Playing with Power channel in the first place? I know there's a pretty strong mission that you had in your mind behind the channel. What is that, and where did it come from?
Yeah, so there was a big long story around it, and I've talked about it a few times, whether it be through tweets or maybe through like a subscriber special that's on the YouTube channel that you could probably dig up. But basically, really, the basis of me starting Playing with Power was the idea that I used to be a casual Commander player, loved Commander, and had a lot of misconceptions about what CDH was. And without digging into the real weeds of what made me come around, was just the idea that I was wrong. I was wrong about what CDH was. I had the wrong opinion about it. I thought it was bad. I thought it was for bad people, and just this had this terrible view of it until I actually tried it. And I absolutely loved it. I was wrong, and I was never more happy to be wrong about something. And really what that did to me was I said, I can't be the only one out here who had this wrong opinion, who still thinks of CEDH this way. And this is all the way back in 2018 for context. So I know the landscape's a lot different now. But when I first started this journey, I was like, I think that there's really something here. And I think that I could be a part of something that could help spread this word that CEDH is not this bad person format or full of bad people or bad actors. It's actually full of a lot of really great people And it's a really, really fun way to play this game. It is the most fun I had ever had playing Commander up to that point, and also Magic up to that point. It was my favorite way to play it. And that's really what started me on this journey.
And then what came next? You were like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I have this passion for CEDH that I just can't quit. How did you get from like there to making YouTube videos? That's a pretty big jump.
It really is, actually. Now that you mention it,
a lot of people are like, it'd be so cool if someone did that thing, or I could do that thing, and then they don't do that thing, but you did that thing.
I started playing with Power MTG actually before I ever started playing CDH. I was like, oh, content creation, might be fun, and creative expression, and, a way to produce something that you can be proud of. And it was on Cube. I
was about to say, you made some ancient Cube videos.
Yeah. And that was actually where the name Playing with Power came from, because it was a Power Cube, Power 9. And that's what was in the Cube. That's where the whole title came from. And I was like, when I got into CDH, I usually when I get into something, I get into it pretty deep. I really love to deep dive and find out a lot about a given topic. And so when I was getting into CDH, there wasn't a lot of content out there. An article here and there, a smattering here and there. And after you weeded through all like the bad talk and the downvoted things on like Reddit back in the day, I would look into YouTube content, watching games, getting to know more about commanders and stuff like that. And a lot of the content that I was seeing out there was not the type of content that I wanted to consume. And there was nothing wrong with that content, but it was all very, very long form content. Hearing the players talk, like at times listening to them talk about side things and, while they're shuffling and stuff. And these games would be these videos would be very, very long. We're talking like 90 minutes to 2 hours. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to make that 100% clear. That's just not how I liked to consume my content. And so I was like, I wonder if there would be a market for me to get the CDH message out there, but also in a form of content that shows that it's exciting, because that was one of my biggest misconceptions about CDH. It was analytical. It was dry. It was like, you're really deep in the tank and there's no fun to be had. And that's not what it was. It was still a lot of fun. So is there a way that I could convey it through content that it is fun and it is exciting? And that was the kind of what led me to the conclusion of not only creating it as videos, but also creating it in the style we ended up creating it in.
Yeah, and that kind of style, it is, you are narrating the gameplay. It's cut pretty quick. You could see someone take an action, you describe what they're doing, and then we're moving on to the next thing. You don't hear someone say, I'm going to counter that, and then hemming and hawing and someone reacting. You hear Ryan saying, Callahan casts Thassa's Oracle. In response, Ryan casts Mindbreak Trap, exiling Thassa's Oracle. Successfully stopped. Cal passes the turn, right? Like, and that's way different than me being like, I'm gonna tap my volcanic island in an island, and I'm gonna put Thassa's Oracle onto the stack, and then Mike goes, we're in trouble, guys. Does anyone have an answer for this?
Starting to feel a little specific.
and then Ryan goes, well, I guess I'll have to use my Mindbreak Trap this turn.
I'm like, do you have nothing? That's usually what I ask when I have interaction.
Yeah. Are you nothing? Mike, you really have nothing? Yeah. And then Mike's like, well, do you want to let priority pass to me? It's like, you have priority, Ryan.
Yeah, that's usually about right. Yeah.
And there is some entertaining value. There is some entertainment value to that, right? Like, it's people having fun, people enjoying themselves. There's banter and all that kind of stuff. But that is also not like that accessible. We're relying on people knowing a lot of like what those cards do. We're messing around with like in jokes and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't actually like fit the content vision that I guess you were setting out with, right?
That's pretty much it. Like you said, what's the best way I can say this without being insulting to the world? A lot of the times people say this is an amazing game. I think the whole world should see it. And so they might throw something up somewhere and then wonder why it doesn't do so well. And that's because when you're in a game, it's a lot more entertaining because you're the one partaking in that thing. But when you're just observing a game, you don't have a stake in it, if you will. And therefore, it's not as entertaining. So when you're joking with your buddy, but you just happen to have a camera on, that's why a lot of the times those jokes don't hit, or people get bored and they kind of click away and then the content doesn't do very well. It's because you have to convey. So I'm sorry, you have to be entertaining. It's still content at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. But if you're not able to convey what actually makes it entertaining, then it can just be a pile of in-jokes or whatever, or contextless stuff that people don't understand as much. That can simply just not be that funny.
Yeah.
Or entertaining.
Yeah. Or it's just the game ended on turn 2, because that does happen in CDH. And that's not exactly very entertaining when you're just like, pass priority. Okay, good game. Let's shuffle again. We had fun, but that's not super entertaining at the end of the day.
So you settled on this style. Was there like any other channel that like was kind of already making stuff like this and you were like, I want to make stuff like that?
Yeah. So the long short of it was the big names that were in CDH content at the time. And I will restate that there was nothing wrong with that content. It's just not how I enjoyed it. The big names at the time were a couple of streamers and a couple of YouTube content creators. Spike Feeders had just come out. They were come out like 6 months before we did. But the big ones at the time were teams like the Laboratory Maniacs. They were kind of like the big one. And then there was like Team Turn 3, which did streaming with some, and then also the Mystic Remoras, which were also a streaming team. And they all did that long form content thing. And like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I would watch it, but I would watch it at like 2x speed. But
it is interesting having like talked to Jim and stuff too. That's a very similar reason as to why he ended up starting like the Spike Feeders, because he was like, yeah, CDH is cool. That content is for people, but that's not the kind of stuff I would like to watch. So I'm going to make what I would watch.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually a really good tip. You need to make content that you enjoy at the end of the day. But going back to your original question, there was a couple of creators that I watched as far as Magic content goes, and they did cut narrated gameplay. And one of them was gameplays by Clonehead. They did Casual Commander. They're no longer around. But one that is around is MTG Mudsta. He did cut.
Also recent 100K reacher.
Yes. We actually we're good friends, and we talk to each other off and on, and we swap stories and swap things and swap horror stories and things like that. We're good friends, but yeah, super happy for him and his journey and the fact that he got to 100K recently as well.
And then like the rest is history, right, Ryan? You started making videos, and then you figured out this style, and you tweaked things here, you tweaked things there. It is so funny for me now to like watch a modern Playing with Power video, go back and watch one of the first couple ones. And there are some things that are very similar. It's still your voice on it, and still your voice on it. The music is the same. the same the whole time. But the way that things are put together is different. The way that you word things is different. All that kind of stuff too. And it's because it's been how many years has it been, Ryan?
6 years. 6. Mm-hmm. Yeah. January 2nd will be in year 6. Year 6.
Yeah. So it's been a while. That's been a few years.
Over half a decade dedicated to making this content. That's right.
And over that period of time, there has been some times when, you didn't release as much, like, for a large portion of last year, you weren't releasing stuff, and there's just been, here and there, you're taking a little break and such, but the majority of that time you have been releasing like 1 through 4, 1 through 5, videos on the YouTube channel. I think we were up to 5 per week at the peak of our rapidly burning out powers.
Yes,
at the time when I was on the team.
That was too much in retrospect.
That was
definitely a lesson learned. It was way too much.
Yeah, but has it been weekly since the beginning, or toward the beginning was it a little more here and there?
When I put out my very first video, I didn't have any intentions of like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm going to be a big content creator. I'm going to do this. I was like, maybe it'll make like $50 over the life of the, like maybe it'll do something, maybe it won't, maybe I can buy a card here and there, maybe if it, a lot of maybes, a lot of not sure. And when it had the reception that it did, I was actually very surprised by it. I was like, I had no idea that it was going to be as well received as it was. And so being a naive content creator who didn't know anything, I actually had a lot of the CDH content creation community come out, reach out to me and say, wow, great video. Let me give you some tips, which was great. I thought that was amazing. And some of their tips were good. And some of their tips I had to kind of make the choice to not use because that was what they were doing. And I decided to forge my own path in some areas. But one of the things that they said was break it up into seasons. Hey, 6 to 10 episode season, then take a break, then a whatever season. And so when we first started, we kind of did it that way. And we did one a week is what we did.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then over time that grew to 2 a week, 3 a week, 5 a week.
That was a lot. That was a lot. Yeah, that was a lot.
Two CEDH. No,
it was
two CEDH, or was it 3 CEDH?
It's 2 CDH. Podcast,
one constructed,
and then a
podcast,
and then it was 2 CDH. Okay, so
sheesh.
One podcast, right?
Yeah.
And then one 1v1 format, 60 card format.
Okay, so it was 4.
It was 4. And then, but that wasn't including shorts, whether or not you want to include that, that was also
shorts are a lot of work.
Sure. Most of my they can be, but they're nothing compared to a long.
It's just something video, no, but it's just something else on the pile.
Yes, that is 100% correct. So yeah,
another thing to think about, another thing considering, another thing taking up brain space. So it has been a long path with a lot of changes, and there are a lot of people who don't make it that long. 100K is a really big achievement for a big reason. There's some people like Commander at Home and that kind of stuff where they do just, get extremely popular and, pretty much get there really quickly. But for a lot of other people out there, a lot of people who reach 100K have been grinding it day in and day out for, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And along the way, there's definitely a lot of highs and lows. I guess we could start with the lows. That's a little bit of we can start negative and go positive,
work our way up.
Yeah. or maybe we can go back and forth, right?
Sure.
But it's been a long road, Ryan. It's just, what are the highs and lows that come to mind for you? You can talk about them as much or as little as you like.
Oh, good. We might run out of hard drive space because there's a bunch. There's a bunch of highs and lows.
Sure.
One of the, I would say, let's start off with the lows and we'll just kind of go back and forth. So one of the lows of it was in the very beginning, I didn't change everyone's mind right away. It was, we got some active hostility in our comment section of YouTube. Some that was just really nasty. I won't repeat them. Some of them are so bad, but a lot of them are you're a bad person. This is horrible. I was like, man, you don't even know me. It's what are you? So move on. If you don't like it, just move on. But actively attacking me because they thought I was attacking them because I was attacking their format that they love so much, Casual Commander. And so they had a lot of open hostility. And then the other side of that on that subject of comments was people attacking our playstyle. You should have done this. That's not how that works. You misplayed here. You didn't do that right. A lot of that, what do they call that? Backseat or, armchair, magic commentary. And you had to basically the long short of it is that you had to develop a very thick skin very quickly to publish content. I had a couple of early members on the team that they didn't develop that skin as quickly and they decided to bow out because of it. And I don't blame them whatsoever for it.
That is one of the hardest parts of making content. I've been lucky. I don't have a big enough an audience on here to get too much criticism, but man, there's a reason why there is an entire subgenre of creator tweet of wow, look at this insane guy. Look at this dude. And two, there is also there is undue criticism or unfair criticism and that kind of stuff too. But there are people who will offer you constructive criticism too, which depending, creating content is often very much like an expression of yourself, or like you were saying, even a lot of people might look at these videos and be like, they're making gameplay content. Well, no, Ryan Street is making the gameplay content that he would like to see, and for someone to go, hey, what if you did something else different? Here's my idea. That can also be hurtful, even if it's meant to be entirely positive or whatever too.
Because like you said, it is a form of creative expression. Whether or not people want to or say it or admit it or anything like that, especially in the beginning, it's a form of that creative expression. And when somebody starts attacking it, because I'm okay with constructive criticism. Hey, just so you know, your audio levels are a little bit off. Oh, okay, great. Thank you for letting me know. I will make that better. Versus, this is terrible. We need to hear them. It's like, go watch one of the others.
Hey, dummy. Yeah. Hey, dummy. I can't even hear you. Turn it up.
Yeah. Or I can't hear the voices. We need to be able to hear the voices. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. A classic. The playing with power critique. Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yep. So that's the lowest low, huh?
No. That's just one of them. I'm going in chronological order. So right now we're at month 1. Is not the lowest low.
Well, what came next, Ryan? Got to develop a thick skin.
Yeah, I developed a thick skin. I also learned very quickly what advice to take and what to throw out, because I knew that I had something going and I had to, for lack of a better word, forge my own path, which means that you're going to have some rough times and you're just going to have to be okay with that. And that was okay, and I'm not going to say it was easy, but I was definitely, in retrospect, happy that I did that. And some of that was throwing out advice and positive and constructive criticism from predominant people, like not just random commenter on YouTube. I'm talking like some people that I looked up to, that I would have to say, thank you for that comment, and then actually just not follow it.
Yeah, just like, thank you for the advice, and then you privately know that is not something you're interested in doing.
That's hard to do. That's very hard to do.
Well, and even then, like if you're at you said that even kind of relatively early on, you kind of knew you had something going for you. What was making you think that? Was it just like you were immediately getting positive reaction, immediately getting way more views than you thought you would have, that kind of stuff?
Essentially, yeah. So we put out the very first video and I was like, hey, if this hits 100 views, man, this is a success. I'm going to be so stoked. And we got like 10,000 in the first week. And that's nuts. That was unbelievable for a channel that had never put out anything. It was we got comments that said, because I know that we talked about some negative comments, but it definitely was not the majority of the comments. There was, this is amazing. I absolutely love this. This is so great. Actually comments of disappointment. Oh, you only have one video. I was going to go binge watch you. That was part of what I knew was going to be. I think I had something there. Positive comments abound, lots of views, lots of a big burst of subscribers. When I was literally uploading it and thinking that I was going to get 100 views, and in my wildest dreams, 1,000.
So you had something, and man, even that, that kind of being the second thing we're talking about in relation to comments too, I think is part of the curse of doing all this, right? Because at the end of the day, accidentally, the loudest voices do so often end up being the most critical ones. You can, or at least in our minds, you can get so many comments that are holy moly, love this show. Can't believe you only have one episode. Can't wait for more. Thanks for doing this. This is so great. And then your takeaway is one guy being screw you, turn up everyone. Where's terrible. The voice? Why can't I hear you guys playing?
Yeah, that's true. They are what sticks out.
Yep. What's the next one, Ryan?
Where do we go from there? So we started to make more episodes, and we kept getting a continuous positive reinforcement. But there was a couple of specific things that had happened kind of in the first 6 episodes that really said, let's keep going. This is enough. And one of them was, I never knew CDH was like this. what deck should I build? And I was like, whoa, okay. I'm not somebody who's
So
just,
like, yeah, achieving the goal.
yeah. Like I was like, oh, people are actually wanting to try it now, which was the whole point, was that to show that it was actually a really fun way to enjoy the game. And I was like, oh, okay, this is working. This is doing what I want it to do. And then another one that came in the first year, it was actually later in the year, it was towards the end of the year, because our very first episode was January 2nd, 2019. It was a long comment, and I can't remember what video it was on, but essentially they said they were in a dark place, for lack of a better word, and our videos helped them out of that dark place. I never imagined that some guy playing Magic would do that for another person. That changed so much for me when I read that.
Yeah, definitely. That's like such a high point, honestly.
It was. Yeah, it was great. It's one of the highlights of my entire time doing this, was that basically I helped somebody through something that I never even thought I would have a chance to do.
Just by like doing your thing. Mm-hmm. You're just doing your thing, and that helps somebody out. That's about as good as it gets.
I agree 100%.
And then of course we have to naturally come to the lowest point.
Back to the lows,
next,
okay.
right? Like immediately I had to
Well, no, enough riding that high. Let's go right back down into the gutter. All right. I would say that one of the lows that I didn't anticipate happening was that I would start to be associated with somebody who should be saying something. And what I mean by that is, like, over the last 5-6 years, we've gotten into a pretty hostile online landscape, whether it be political or otherwise. And then people are starting to say, oh, what's your opinion on this? And I would refrain from giving my opinion, because I'm just one guy. My opinion doesn't matter. And, your opinion is what matters to you. But then I started to get wrangled into things like, well, you need to start having an opinion, or we're going to automatically assume the worst. We're going to assume that you have the bad opinion. And I didn't like that. That was a really tough landscape to navigate, because you have to think of not only what your personal opinions are, but they were also trying to attach it to a brand, which is, and that's what made it a lot more difficult. You're like, hey, well, how do you feel about this really, fire political topic that's very divisive? And as a person, you could say, well, I can choose to have this opinion, but I don't want to give it, because people are going to start spreading the opposite if I don't. And that's just like a no-win situation is what it boils down to. And I didn't like that. That was a real tough thing to navigate.
Yeah, that's certainly, like, once you go into a public limelight, at some point people are gonna start asking you questions or whatever, and you have to answer those questions, or you can be put in a tough spot.
And whatever answer is, you're going to alienate somebody, especially if it's a politically charged question. Yeah, that's what's tough, is because they're figuratively pulling you into a place where you don't want to go, because I'm an entertainer. I'm not an educator, and I'm not looking to inspire. I'm looking to entertain people, and that's what it was. And it ended up being inspiring, but it also ended up being like, oh, we want your commentary on this. And I was like, that's not really what I want to do. I don't want to give commentary. I'm just here to help you escape that for 30 minutes on your lunch break. Watch this Playing with Power video, look at these cool cards, look at these cool plays, and then get back to your life. I was hoping to be a bit of an escape more than somebody who gave commentary on that.
Well, and I think even the past, like the most more serious stuff, right? I think you have incidentally ended up in a position now where, you've ended up in a position where people have ended up like, oh, this thing is happening in the CEDH community. This thing is happening with Commander. Dearest Ryan, you have a lot of YouTube subscribers. What do you play a lot of CEDH? What do you think about this?
I wish they would ask that.
Yeah, they used to, Ryan.
Yeah, I wish they would say, what do you think about this? Because what instead they say is, you need to be right here. person who's public persona, person who's, like you said, part of this community and part of this greater space, you need to be here. I'm claiming that you're a bad person, or you shouldn't be here if you do not do what I say. That's a tough spot to be in. Those are the hard parts. Those are the low points, definitely, when it comes to navigating that landscape.
Yeah. Was there any like specific instances or moments or whatever in regards to that kind of stand out, or is it just like the more so the general vibe that you would have preferred to chill out?
There was a couple of places where certain members of the community were kind of ousted, and I think that their actions were not good, and I was okay with them being ousted. You know, like, hey, we don't really kind of want that kind of community, you know. I'm sorry, we don't want those type of people in the community. I was behind that, but they at the same time were like, we now need you to condemn them. We need you to make a comment and say that they're a bad person. And I'm like, no. That does nothing. That doesn't help anything. And that could be a controversial take. I know that. But at the same time, we have plenty of other people dogpiling on this conversation, fighting back and forth. And I was like, I just want this to be a positive community. I want this to be a community where all are welcome. And I'm okay with a person not being a community who doesn't align with those values. But my platform is not so that you could then channel through me your opinions through my bigger subscriber base. That's not how I wanted my platform to be used. And so I was always very judicious about what things that we would comment or not comment on as a result of that. Sometimes we hit, sometimes we missed. That's just part of this whole journey.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. And obviously, there are some highs to getting to share your opinions with people, Ryan.
Yes, there are. There are some good things.
Wait, we're moving chronologically. Yes. What's next?
Now, one of the highs was when we hit 50,000 subscribers. That was amazing. When we at the end of season 1, which was 6 episodes, we hit 10,000 subscribers. Insane. Never saw that happening. And then we hit 20,000. I was like, wow, this is really great. And then we hit 50,000. And that happened about 2 years in. We hit 50,000 subscribers at 2 years. We did a subscriber special where you could hear about the full history and all the details of Playing with Power and stuff like that, as well as some quick commentaries about introductions of some of the then team members. It took another 4 years to hit 100,000. Just so everyone knows, that incline is not linear. It's got a lot of plateaus and slowdowns and stuff like that. But that was a really good moment when we hit 50,000. I was like, wow, we became the biggest channel, a CEDH channel on YouTube. We inspired a lot of copycats, and I do not mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in the most flattering way possible, because I think that was amazing that we were inspiring other people to, go out there, take a chance and give it a shot. One of them was Casually Competitive MTG. They basically did the same thing that we were doing at the time. Once again, copycat, not a bad term. That's a good thing. It was really cool that they were doing that. And they were just on their way. They were looking to surpass us. I was like, do it. Just, the more the merrier. The more CDH, the better, And I was a huge fan of that. Those people out there. And not just copying, but doing other stuff too. Because shortly after, I want to say 6 months after, forgive me if that timeline's wrong, but Play to Win came out, and they're not I'm not saying they're copycats, not at all. They said, I like this CDH thing, let's do a CDH thing, but they were doing it kind of cut, but they were doing their own voices, a cool hybrid, and they're doing fantastic now as a result of it too. So that was
they've got the really high energy music. Yeah. They've got the real cut, real tight, but you still hear what everyone's saying. Yeah, they have the funny interstitially kind of stuff. Yeah.
Love Play to Win to this day. Absolutely love
good
them.
Kids.
Yeah, they're
good kids.
I'm old. That's why I think that's funny. I'm just an old guy.
Look, so. I call everyone good kids, and everyone's 6 years older than me. Okay. So.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. Yeah,
Ryan, you're a good kid.
Thanks. son.
I'm not that much younger than you,
Yeah,
Ryan.
you're not. Yeah, that's true.
Let's talk about the grind from 50 to 100 for a little bit, right? I guess if we're kind of in that era, I think that's a lot. I think around the 50K was around the time when I got in. I don't remember.
Ish.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe.
No, I think I'm wrong.
You're late. You were later than that.
Yeah. I was probably closer to like 75 or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Who knows? But it was like you said. You hit 50K, and then it took you another
4 years.
So you hit 4 years to go from 50K to 100K. So, that growth was not exponential. The growth wasn't even linear.
No.
What was it like? I assume there's like highs in there too, but I assume that like past a point when, and part of this is colored by me personally knowing you to some extent, right?
Yeah.
I know that, all this fun and games when the growth keeps coming and the numbers keep going up. And then, you have that run of 10 videos where you realize that everything's like 7 out of 10. YouTube's great at showing you that.
Yeah.
And you get that YouTube notification that's like, hey, let's see how you did. Oh, you got 20% less subscribers this month than you did last month, which was 20% less subscribers than the month before. And you kind of notice that the video view average on your new videos has gone down from like 30,000 to 28 to 25, right? And that's... Let's talk about that a little bit, Ryan. What was going on there? What was that like?
No one prepares you for that. No one ever tells you that. It's demoralizing, quite honestly, because you're like, oh, I guess it's not working anymore, or people don't like it anymore, or maybe they moved on to something else, or maybe we're just yesterday's news, because we had been doing it at 2+ years at this point, and when you start to see those numbers plateau, no one tells you that. It's no longer about acquiring or finding your audience. It's about building your audience at that point. And they use those terms in conjunction, but they actually are two distinctly different things. There's a ravenous audience out there who doesn't know you exist that wants to consume your content. That was the first 50,000. Every other subscriber after that were people that didn't exist yet when I first started. These are people that got into CDH later. These are the people that discovered CDH because they saw a related video. They're like, oh, that's good. And so every single one of those subscribers was tooth and nail. You had to fight for every single one of those, biting and scratching. And that's a lot harder when the feedback loop of rewards stops. That's a lot harder to do. And nobody tells you that. And so you're constantly second guessing yourself. You're wondering whether or not you should change something, add something, stop, like, oh, I guess it's just not good anymore, and so, but there's no one who can tell you that, because people only talk about the successes, or, if you hear rumblings about that, it's just relegated to a small corner that you can't find through a search engine because you don't know what to search for. That was tough. That was hard to fight through. I'm glad I came out on the other side of it, because it just decided to, just buckle down and keep going with it. Because once I hit 50, I said, we'll hit 100. Mm-hmm. I'll do whatever I can to make sure we hit 100.
Obviously, we'll hit 100. Yeah. Duh. We made it this far, this quick. Okay, easy.
Another 2 years, sure. No.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that is kind of the thing. I feel like, especially with working in the type of creation that is incidentally just so numbers focused. There's a lot of types of creation out there that could be a little more for personal reasons or whatever. But when you're making pretty involved stuff and putting it on YouTube, at the end of the day, it kind of is about numbers past the point. But there's like, in my mind, there's kind of like 4 major stages that I think you have gone through, and I think a lot of people have gone through. There's like stage 1, which is like, here's something I am passionate about. I am making it because I want to make it. It's cool. I'm changing up things. I'm trying new things every episode. That's exciting. That's interesting. And then there's like step 2, which like comes after some level of success. It's like, oh, people like the thing I am making. I am enjoying that other things that people like I'm making. I have largely figured out not a formula, but I have figured out what works and what I like doing. I am largely doing that. I am tweaking things here and there. Now the motivation is cool. I'm making things that people like and things that enjoy. And it's still something I like making, but a big portion of the thing keeping me going is that other people are liking it. The numbers are going up. That is where the dopamine is coming from. Then there's like step 3, which, like you said, no one really prepares you for, where the first big plateau comes, or maybe things have been plateauing for a little bit and you're like, okay, weird fluke. And then things go down, and then things go down again. Kind of like I was already saying, you enter like that era where it's not quote unquote, it's never easy, but there's always a period when you start to become successful where things are quote unquote easy, because you're making something that, like you said, there's a ravenous audience out there for your content that YouTube is just shoveling at you so that they can find you, or other platforms too, right? And then you're like in the great unknown at long last, where what you were doing was working and then what you're doing isn't working anymore. And you have to figure that out, and you have to come to terms with that, or realize that maybe you don't actually want to do this anymore. And then I feel like there's kind of like stage 4, which is maybe where you're at right now, where you're like, okay, this is where I am. What can I do about that? I'm interested in still working on this. What do I do differently? What do I change? What do I keep the same? How much do I care about the numbers? How much am I still doing this because I want to do it? Is that the vibe now, or even the vibe at 73,000, right? In year 4.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's a really great way to describe it, because that really was that journey. If I could summarize it into really succinct points, is when you first start, you make content for yourself. And then I would say right at my 50,000 mark, when I started to expand into the other content types and do more things and see how that was going to work, there's a switch that happens, and it's not even always conscious, but it does happen. You stop making it for yourself and you start making it for others. Usually it's your audience that you're making it for. And then you kind of get into the third spot, which is the final spot, or what you would consider the fourth phase, which is you're making it for both. You're on the journey together. And that's where I finally ended up. It wasn't about, I have this many sponsors and we need to make this many views, and I have to contact this business contact and do that other thing because we need to make sure enough money is going so we can generate this content. And a lot of people who consume content can see when that happens, and they can't always pinpoint what it is, but they'll usually paraphrase it with like, the life got sucked out of your content. It became formulaic. Those are the words that get thrown around. And that's usually what the switch between you make content for yourself and you're making content for others.
I want to say there was a point in time, pretty much right around, I would say toward the end of the time when I was on the team, when like, I don't think there was that many people who realized like how big and how complex of an organism that like Playing with Power was, which also may have been when you were borderline at your most miserable.
Yeah, it was. And it was definitely in stage 5 burnout, 5-alarm fire burnout, because like I said, I had been making it for other people for years at that point. Because like I said, between 50 and 100, I was making it for other people, and I can't tell you how miserable that is. You see it with other content creators in their I'm quitting YouTube videos all the time. I'm tired of making this for other people. Or they say, I want to make my videos again. They say like, I want to reclaim ownership because they lost control somewhere. And you were right. I was miserable making it, and I'm sure it reflected in the content a lot. And that's really unfortunate. I hate that had happened. I hate that it happened to the team because they felt it. You felt it. Everyone felt it, because I was generally unhappy because it was all consuming. It consumed everything in my life. And it was always about a number. It was always about the next video. Never stopped and appreciated, never stopped and paused on a victory. It was always just like, what's next? And that was a mistake. And it was a hard learned mistake. And so I'm sorry, a hard learned lesson is what it was. But I'm glad that I learned the lesson. I just wish I didn't have to learn that lesson that way, is the thing, because it was a rough time for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, it was a period of time when, like we said, you were making 4 videos a week. And those videos are 20 to an hour plus for the podcast. 20 minutes to an hour plus. 4 videos a week.
4.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? While, let's see, while we were also making shorts.
Shorts.
While we had a very wide-reaching and involved social media presence.
Shout out to Callahan.
Right. Hey, a lot of other people helped. Running a online tournament series culminating in an in-person event. Other stuff too, just like here and there, participating in some charity events, doing some streaming stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, do it just like all of that stuff, all at the same time, slowly working on it, like, a little bit of a change in pace, in person, the Masterpiece series that was taking up a lot of time, and so it's just like, and then, one day, you just had to stop it all, right?
Yep. Sure did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's the tough part, right? Like you burn out so bad. I know there was some other stuff going on with you too, but you took a relatively extended long break, right?
Yes, it was months, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. I needed it. It was bad. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I took it. I'm much better on the other side now, thank goodness. It helped put into perspective. There was a really good point during that when I was like, I think I might just walk away and just leave it behind.
And I think that was the message that like a lot of, I know you wrote like a message that you posted on social media and on the YouTube page and in the, the Patreon Discord. And that did very much feel like the vibe, and I think a lot of people have been picking up the vibe for a while that, like, is Ryan really into it? Is Ryan
okay?
Yeah. Is Ryan okay? Yeah, exactly. And then you were like, well, I think it might be it might be done. And then radio silence for 6 months.
It was that was a tough time. It was very tough, but it also allowed me to gain perspective because now I had the perfect opportunity to exit. I was like, I could walk away right now. No one would begrudge me. No one would say, this is the perfect moment to walk away if I wanted to walk away. And I didn't want to. And the reason is that, number one, I felt that the mission wasn't done. For a long time there, I was asking myself, did we accomplish our mission? Which is, to bring CDH to show people that this is a fun way to enjoy this game. And I was like, did I accomplish that mission? And the answer was never a definitive no or yes, but I would get reminded all the time when I looked outside of my echo chambers and stuff like that. And when they would say, CDH is cancer, like, oh, we're not done yet. Okay, we've got a while to go. And when I asked myself that question, really what it boiled down to was I didn't want to stop. I still derived joy in bringing this to people and showing people that this is what I wanted to. I'm sorry, that this was a way to enjoy this game. And so I kept going.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, you're like, and now you're back to it much slower than it was before. I know you're like ramping back up a little bit.
A little. A little.
Are we on a new high, Ryan?
No. I'm just kidding.
Fair enough.
Really what it boils down to is it's become a lot more about balance. Because I swung the pendulum so far to one side that it had to eventually come back, and it came back with that force. So now I have kind of the wisdom to understand that I can't do it that way again.
You can keep the pendulum within a very defined range.
Yeah. So a video didn't come out this week. That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Sure. That's not the end of the world. I'm not going to, my hair's not going to, light on fire. I'm not going to yell at a bunch of people and say, why is this happening or not happening? It's okay. And if my audience leaves after one missed video, that's okay too, so be it. There are more important things in life than whether or not a video comes out on week 13 of 2025. There are more important things in this world. And finding that balance was critical. So we are ramping back up again, but it's never going to return to what it was. It'll never be 4 videos plus 5 shorts.
That was too much.
It's too much. It's too much. And I learned that lesson the hard way. The hard way. Yeah.
Definitely. Ryan, it's, we kind of that was a real high, real fast level view of some of the highs and lows, right? Is there any other like specific things like that you would want to call out about that whole experience? Does that kind of capture it a bit?
I would say that, that does capture it. I I would, if I was given the opportunity to do it all again, I would 100% do it without hesitation.
Yeah,
I love that the impact that we ended up making on this game. Not because, well, people know my name. I don't care about that. Like I said, we never show our faces.
There's a lot of people who don't know who you are.
Yeah. We never show our faces. That was never the important part of this thing. It was that when we go to a convention and people come up to me and they tell me, you're the reason I got into CDH. That's why I do it.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. And in that kind of vein, if you could do it over all again, you would do it again. But I'm sure you would do things differently here and there in many different ways. And in that vein, do you have any advice for people who are looking to or have already started out on their way to inevitably having 100,000 subscribers?
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces of advice that I would give to fledgling content creators out there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yes, exactly. The very first video that I put out, I said to myself, if this gets 0 views, I am still okay with it being published because I loved watching it. I genuinely made content that I wanted to watch. And I know that's a cliche term. You hear that, make content that you love and stuff like that. And people don't know what that means. Try to get that right early on. Try to say, actually watch that video, make the piece of content where you're like, man, that was so good. I want to watch it again. Make it so that you love it. And the rest of the stuff will fall into place and you'll learn some lessons. You'll make some mistakes, but that's part of the experience. But at the end of the day, if you're chasing the latest something, you're looking at drama or you're looking at this and that only for the sake of trying to get views or trying to make it on YouTube or something like that, you're not going to. It's not going to work. You gotta have that passion get you through those slogs, that plateau, those bad comments, the times when you question whether or not you should keep going. If you don't have that, you will quit. You will walk away. So I think that's a really big one to start with. Yeah.
And then what about past that?
Pace yourself. Once I saw that there was the potential to do things, I went too fast. And I said, okay, now we need to do 2 videos a week. And now we need to break into all these other formats. And now we need to create a podcast and then bring the podcast back and then bring the podcast back a 4th time. And it's like, I wanted to do everything. And at one point we started a tournament series and we had a bunch of fallout and problems from that. And overall it was good, but there was a lot of issues surrounding all of that. But pace yourself. I know that you're eager and you're excited because I was too. That's why I wanted to do it all. I wonder how well we would do in this format or that format. But just know that it will come. You just have to make sure that you're laying the foundations properly first. Have you established an audience? Have you established a style? Do people have you established an audience that will have you established a group of peers that can give you a positive feedback loop or constructive criticism loop? I
think that's a really big one. I think you can look externally from yourself for constructive criticism, but I have found time and time again, if you are going to do that, and I do recommend doing that, having like-minded peers to do that rather than looking to Joe Schmo YouTube commenter for that validation, because you will get it. You will get it there. People will give you good advice from time to time, but nothing is better than someone who you personally know, who personally cares about you, who personally is interested and invested in your success, giving you thoughtful feedback over a period of time, and also you doing the same for them. And that's a good thought exercise, even to help give other people constructive criticism. You can also find out stuff about yourself too. Yeah.
And don't be afraid to give that criticism and get it. Don't be afraid to have your stuff ripped apart. I'm not looking for the flowery comments of how great I am. I'm looking for ways to improve here. So please rip it apart. And I think that having a group of, having an inner circle of peers that can do that honestly and genuinely is going to take you so far.
Is that all of the tips that Ryan has for our beloved audience?
There's 1,000 little technical tips I can give and like all this other stuff. But there is one last tip that I would probably say is super important. And that's give a damn. Honestly, give a damn about what you're doing. Give a damn about what the content is. Like, I've seen some amazing potential in, you know, people like a really talented player or someone who has amazing skills in editing. And then just like it just drops like a stone because they didn't give a damn about all the details. And the details matter. People won't bring it up in the comments all the time, but those details do matter. So care about them. What separated us in the beginning from a lot of the other creators was that we gave a damn really early on, was that we cared about quality. We cared about the details. We cared about, you know, those little things that make a video go from 2 hours to make to 20 hours to make. Oh, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to do that. I just want to publish it and then have everyone know my name. That's not going to work unless you actually care about that stuff and care about those details of what you're crafting. Then you're never going to get anywhere. And I wish it wasn't the case, but it comes back to the cliche that there are no shortcuts.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. Well, Ryan, we are running out of time, but I do have 2 more questions for you before we go. As always, for the Patreon, I will be picking your brain after this about your hobbies you have outside of Magic. If that sounds interesting, you want to hear Ryan talk about some stuff. Believe me, you want to hear about Ryan's other hobbies. He's a very hobbied man.
I am now.
That'll be
for 50,000 to 100,000. Wasn't, but I am now. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that for the Patreon here in a minute after we end, Ryan. But before we go, as always, is there anything else that you would love to leave the audience of the Herald Torn with?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone out there. We got a 100,000 subscriber plaque, and it says presented to here. Let me get it real quick. I need to show it.
Yeah, I was about to say. I know it's like 2 feet away from you. I saw it last weekend.
Yeah.
Pajama pants reveal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm wearing my pajamas. I'm business casual.
As always.
Yeah. Business casual. So this isn't to brag. But this says presented to Playing with Power MTG for passing 100,000 subscribers. And I went because you get to tell them what you want on the plaque.
Yeah.
And I gave serious consideration to putting the word CEDH there because that's what this is. This isn't the fact that Playing with Power got 100,000 subscribers. This is the fact that CDH is where it is today. And it could not be where it is today without everybody who supported Playing with Power, everyone who created content and supported other content creators. For those who were out there, every commander night getting just, spit in the face and said you don't belong and came back anyway. And those who, decided to make content, those who were there on the Fridays at Magic Cons teaching people to play CDH and fighting through all the vitriol and hatred and stuff like that we were getting for the longest time. Thank you. Thank you for doing all that. Thank you for persevering, because CDH would not be what it is today had it not been for all of you. So thank you for that.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming on to the Herald Torn. It has been a great time to have you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Bye-bye.